Say nada.
We're good? Yep. All right, so we're gonna get started here. It's 12:02 on 10:14. All right, 11:14 all day today. Okay, can we start off with our roll call? Barry Del Cambry here.
Emily Dorn here.
Becky Kittleman here.
Bobby Hempling here.
Pat Sheehan here.
All right, that is everybody. Moving on to public comments. Has anyone signed up to speak on to the RCDC? Nope. Okay. Next thing we need to move on is to the consent agenda. This is we need to discuss possible actions in the minutes from September 13th. I'm assuming that's an approval needed. So need a motion to approve the minutes for our last meeting.
Motion to approve the minutes of the last meeting.
Second.
All right. Do we need to do a roll call on that? I can never remember.
No, not
Yep.
now that
Okay.
we're not live or in person.
Oh, that's right. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, minutes are approved. Okay, that will end the consent agenda part. We'll now move on to the regular agenda. This is a recap and discussion about the joint meeting between the Comprehensive Plan Strike Force and RCDC. Unfortunately, I was unable to attend that meeting. I saw that the meeting was recorded, but I don't. David is also not here today. But Emily, I think that falls to you.
I attended
Most likely
with
to
Pat
recap.
and Becky. We all attended.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I thought it was great. Like, it was very interesting to hear what's being worked on. I know, I mean, Tom Farrell's here who
He
can
did a good
obviously
job.
probably articulate things much better than I can. But I enjoyed it. I thought it was very fruitful to learn and understand and ask those, I, being the new person, asked a lot of questions. And I think I've read the whole draft and I was pleasantly surprised. I think there's some things I have questions on, but I really thought it was a great meeting.
I second that.
Thank you all for setting that up. Is there anything else, I mean, other than saying it was a great meeting, anything else that we need to
No.
note?
No.
that came out of it?
Pretty thorough,
Yeah.
guys.
I mean, I think if you want to read through
Yeah,
the draft and
I did read through
bring
this.
up questions.
It's just, making sure I didn't miss anything from your standpoint. I mean, thank you all
Barry,
again
do you
for.
want to hear from Tom
Yeah, I was
since
gonna
he's
say.
here?
Yeah, if he can, I wasn't sure if he needed to speak in the public section or if he needed to, yes, I would love to.
David?
Tom Farrell, 3223 Park Hills Drive. Well, listen, thank you guys for meeting with us. This is, I think it was useful. RCDC's got I think, a incredibly important part to play in trying to implement what we've done on this document is try to take a snapshot of what our citizens want today and what they want Rollingwood to look like in the future and what services and that they want to get today on that. And primarily that where RCDC, I think, can come in based on the charter, y'all's charter, is on B Caves Road. And there's a couple of things that really stood out. I mean, just to summarize this a little bit, our citizens wanted walkability to retail and restaurants on B Caves Road. And so we don't get to, none of us get to pick what the property owners on B Cave Road choose to do with their property, thank goodness. And but we want to encourage them to do that, and we've put some incentives in here, which as time goes by, the city will have to look at and make sure that that is working correctly to incentivize people to put the type of product that we want as citizens in there. One of the things that we looked at really big time is the accessibility to that area on that. And I think I mentioned this last time. One of the things we have as a city is part of, we have right-of-way, additional right-of-way on Edge Grove Drive. and that is a great place for us to have accessibility on the BK's Road. Now, obviously, I don't encourage people to walk across the low water bridge on that. It's just not something that I think is prudent. But this is a good opportunity to us to look at how we devise and it may fall within the purview of RCDC, is to provide a access to BK's Road off of Edgegrove Drive on that. I think we have an extra 20 feet of right-of-way along that road, at least in portions of it, which would make it, you could do quite a bit with that from a bike, pedestrian, golf cart, horse, I guess, if we had some, to do that. So we do allow the horses to do that. So anyway, that's where I think we are with that. I would encourage y'all to look at the incentive part of the package that we've given to the commercial users. We've tried to reduce the setbacks on commercial properties, give incentives to reduce the impervious cover. And so and of course, from the big thing, rather than go through, and we looked at each property and determined where that fit into, how it would affect our neighbors, how it would affect the traffic there on BK's Road. But we tried to look at it and say, look, truth of the matter is, this is what our citizens want. So if somebody comes in with zoning on that, we would encourage that use be used throughout BK's Road. So we did have some things. We don't want no more than 2 stories on the north side of BK's Road, 3 stories on the south side on that. There's no apartments, no multifamily, which I don't really have to emphasize because I don't think anybody really thought that was going to happen. We did look at, just so y'all know, we did look at quite a bit of detail in regard to utility services that we have available in the city to make sure that we had access to the proper amount of utilities on those properties to redevelop on that into what we're talking about in there. So I think RCDC has a great opportunity to look at that and say, a couple of things, just suggestions. One is look at how do we provide the access that our residents have asked for to our commercial district? And number 2, if that meets y'all's criteria, we'll have to get that checked out. But if it doesn't, you can look at the incentive package and look at, and maybe that's something that we could expand on. Or, and I think I mentioned this before, we've letting the general commercial community know that Rollingwood is open for business and open to look at redeveloping BK's Road. And that could be a marketing package directed by RCDC to do that. So that's my thoughts. If y'all have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them now or later or whenever whenever it gets to, you get an opportunity to look at this. I would say that one of the things we did that was kind of beyond the purview of what we normally would do is we did look at 20 different reports that Rollingwood has done over the years and tried to utilize what we've already paid for into a report that comes in on this. And number 2, we did meet with a number of residents individually to be able to get their input, not just the survey on that. So I would be available if anybody has any questions now or later or suggestions to improve it. We'll do it. This is a snapshot. It's a working document, and it'll be changed as time goes on and be reviewed and looked at and make sure it's doing what it's supposed to do. So anyway, if I can help with anything, y'all let me know. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to try to answer them.
I have one question actually, maybe to you or to Amber, but in looking through the proposal y'all put together for the really for what's applicable to RCDC, at what point in time, Amber, do we? I guess there's 2 ways to fund like the incentives and also kind of the development on Edgegrove. At what point in time does RCDC need to be, I guess, make a decision before it either goes to the city to decide to fund or to us? Are we close to that? Past that? Like when?
You need an engineering survey. You need
Well-
an engineering study
Well-
done.
Right, so.
And I understand that part, I just meant, not necessarily the steps required to fund, but like if we take from implementation of the strike force recommendations will be at X date, right? How do we back into what
So-
our timing looks like?
Sure. At our special call,
Yeah.
there's an agenda item meeting, and
Yeah.
we plan to have Aaron Farmer
Mhm.
with the retail coach. Since we have kind of mostly a new board, we're going to have him present the findings that he had in that initial report, and then kind of walk you through. His company also will help cities reach out to businesses to bring them into cities. I think there had been another couple of ideas about a real estate broker that maybe
Yeah.
y'all could contract with. So I was hoping after that meeting, once you kind of see some data, you can decide what you might want to do as far as kind of staffing up to start that work. And then once you start, and Megan, you know a lot more about development than I do, but once you start identifying those businesses or making those relationships with developers to bring them in, then that's when you would talk about the incentives and the
Okay.
financing. Is that correct, Megan? So that's usually how that would work.
Yeah, I was trying to also like line up the scheduling of recommendations from a city standpoint. Like the strike force has action items that are coming out of it that the city can choose to or not to like action on. So as the city moves forward with the recommendation of strike force, RCDC needs to be lockstep or like from a timing standpoint in sync.
Mm-hmm.
So like, it sounds, I mean, I guess it sounds like after retail coach will know more from a operational standpoint how we attract businesses, but just from a funding timing standpoint is still we're unclear.
Right. As far as I guess like developing incentives that will just.
Like, do we fund the incentives so that the city doesn't have to? Do we get started on the engineering survey now so that we're ready to proactively go out when we hire the real estate agent to help us? Like things like that's, I'm trying to just back into this in my mind, and maybe it's something I need to do myself, but.
Right. I think that you have to know what's coming before you
Right.
can start like gearing up, so that way you know you have the appropriate financing tool
Yeah.
to help them. You could obviously do an engineering survey if you wanted, but it might not fit what's coming into town.
Right. I just, we meet once a month, right, and we can take 3 to 6 months to really do anything from start to finish, so
Sure.
that's a lot of lost time, and speaking of looking at developers, there's like a lot of development opportunities outside the city, so how do we basically have you almost turn it into a turnkey? How far can we push all the things that they're working on from the strike force standpoint, so when yeah, go ahead.
Well, one thing I'd point out, one of the things that from our survey that we got was that the citizens were not really in favor of adding financial incentives to developers on that. They were in adding incentives to development by itself, but not individual
Yeah, sorry,
projects.
I
on that.
misspoke.
Yeah,
but-
and that's something, but I think that, the access, I think, is provided that meets the criteria of RCDC, of providing additional access to a commercial area, which my mind tells me it would, but
Yeah.
I realize that, 4Bs have their own particular wording, and I don't, frankly, it's been 20-some odd years since I read the 4B, our RCDC's charter, and I don't remember exactly what it says. But I do think that that is something that would be used immediately. It would
Yeah.
affect whether or not we had development there, because it would provide access to BK's Road in a little bit different deal. We do have retail
Yeah.
right there at Edge Grove across the street, and, well, right in that area too. But that is getting across to BK's Road there on Edge Grove is somewhat challenging, and I think that could be done in a way that, and whether or not the city chooses in the future to actually put a higher culvert there and get that generally out of quite the floodplain it's in, is different than trying to put a pedestrian bridge
Yep.
separate from that. I always like to, just from a personal standpoint, I think putting automobile traffic and pedestrian traffic on separate little walkways, separate driveways is probably a better deal to do
No doubt.
in
Especially right
any
there.
time. So that, we have the room to do it. Rolling Wood owns a piece of land there actually own where the creek is. I think it's 5 acres.
It is.
4.5 or 5 acres. So we own that land.
And it runs right behind all those businesses, right?
It does,
Okay.
and it actually goes to, if you wanted to look at it, it goes all the way to BK's Road
Right,
from
right.
Edgegrove,
Well,
on that.
it actually goes into the side of Wally's place.
Wally World, yeah,
Yeah, into the Palisades.
Yeah.
Palisades. So it's that's an opportunity to, for access, and that was reiterated not only in our survey, but when I met with citizens, that's one of the issues that came up as to how, why they don't do quite as much on BK's Road as normal from a business standpoint.
The
So-
other thing, and I'm sorry I missed that first part about elevating Edgegrove. The other thing is a public safety standpoint, and last night with all the rain, the bridge was topping on Rollingwood Drive. And so there was no way to get out of Rollingwood, and so it's a public safety issue. And I think as the council is maybe lining up, in combination with this comprehensive plan survey, they're lining up things that they want to do. That should be at the top of the list, and
Yeah.
Is it
Yep.
the same?
Edge Grove elevating it and putting better culverts in at
put
least.
better culverts in. Yeah, right now our officers have to close it with the manual
Yeah.
gates, and it's an issue for everybody. And we have that spec'd out for a little less than 2 million. So I don't think it's that far out of our reach to get done.
So is it the same process that, like, we did with the commercial business in the park? Is that the same?
Go get a dozer and some culverts.
It's a lot.
I mean, is it the same process where we go I don't know, I'm just asking because I wanna make sure.
I think maybe we could have a joint meeting of the city council and RCDC and
To-
talk about
The actual next steps.
priorities and, yeah.
Because it's definitely also a chicken or egg, especially around the part around the pedestrian access.
Right.
If we build it, then, it's more of an incentive for other people, like other different types of businesses to come in versus saying, hey, we got this here, and like I said, it's 3 to 6 months for us to even approve it, probably a year to get
Sure.
it done, so like, if I'm a new business, that's too long.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, since it's a city road, it's gonna have to be a city project. It's just a question of whether or not, from our perspective, we would contribute or do a cost share.
Yeah,
Right.
that's right. Okay, so that's another thing we can have, I guess, taking an item to have some type of, another joint meeting. Council doesn't have enough meetings, but.
When you said
Joint
there's
meeting.
a 20-foot, or there's a
20 easement.
easement
Not an
back
easement.
from Bee Caves?
We-
Or land owned?
It's
Yeah,
part
we
of-
own a 5-acre strip back that runs roughly from, behind the shell, in between where the shell is
To the finish line.
and the arroyo, the dry creek.
And in addition, we own part of
Yeah, we
the
own
existing
right-of-way.
right-of-way of Edgegrove Drive. The city actually has an addition, at least in
At least
areas.
60
I don't,
feet.
yeah, I think
At least
it's,
60 feet that goes all the way. So we own a 5-acre strip, but then we own an additional 60 feet that basically goes from the end of, actually goes perpendicular behind all those businesses on the commercial side and up into, or actually, I can't remember which side, but up into the parking lot of the Palisades.
yeah, I just, I don't know that it's 20 feet extra all the way down Edgegrove.
It's just 5 acres somehow.
No,
You're
no,
confusing
there's
two
two
sides.
separate
You're talking about
things.
the easement, the 20-foot
Easement,
easement is on
yeah.
Edge
Yeah,
Grove,
not an
yes.
easement, though, it's
Yeah.
right away. We actually, it's ours.
So,
Um,
that's what we built, you gotta have that to build a sidewalk on,
yeah,
or
Yeah.
or the track, or whatever we're gonna build.
Horse track, right?
yeah. But that's I'm not sure that,
We've gotta get that,
we would have to know
New title.
right, yeah, because I think over the last
That's a 5
60
acre
years
tract.
of rolling
And then
wood,
that's the right of
the
way.
city may have released part of that to
It
certain
does, yeah, it's
landowners
actually-
and not to other
It's existing,
landowners.
and it goes-
So I don't know that for a fact. But, you know,
That's a lot of land.
we could, you know, we'd have to look in that and see if that works on that. But we do own that tract of land where the creek is. And for some reason, I think
It's 5 acres.
it is, but it's two tracks. One is a 4.5 acre tract, I think, David, and the other one is a 1/2 acre that is old right of way.
Yeah, and it runs basically back behind, it runs behind the Shell station,
Yeah.
where the Gaddy's was, and then there's 2 strip centers where there's a sign company, the Goodwill and everything else. 5 acres runs back there, and it goes all the way from the backs of those businesses to, what's that street that,
Timberline.
no, it's not Timberline, it's, the street that's.
South.
South Crest.
Yeah.
South Crest, and then basically.
South of the creek.
South of the creek, the right-of-way extends, right now there's, the South Crest dead ends, it extends off the back of South Crest up into the Palisades. So it's actually on that
Both
side.
sides of the creek, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. So, but it's you know, that's a opportunity, I think, for something for RCDC to
Yep.
consider. And that would should meet the criteria, I would think, of RCDC. And, now whether or not the bridge the city is contemplating,
yeah.
would duplicate that, you know, I don't know. I haven't seen that, but, you know, the problem has always been on putting a bridge there, just so everybody knows, is you have 2 streets. You have,
South Crest.
South Crest and then Grove Court, and you can't have block them out.
Right.
So it's kind of been a awkward, how you do that and get it out of the floodplain. Doesn't do us any good if we build one that's still in the floodplain, on that.
Makes
So,
sense.
Anyway, if y'all look at this and, if there's any questions that come up, we'll be glad to try to, address them, or any comments or suggestions. We'll be glad to try to, work with y'all and, try to get that done. But we appreciate everything, the service of each of y'all, so.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you
for doing
for
that.
talking.
So,
And you, David.
Thanks.
So
That was a lot of work.
that is pretty much 3 and part of 4 in there. So the only action I think we need to have, that I've captured out of the, reviewing that comprehensive plan, is just setting up some type of meeting in the near future with the council based off of the recommendations that we reviewed just now.
Barry, you made a point that we meet once a month, and
Yep.
when you're in a development chain, or when you're in that
Yep.
process, is it possible for RCDC to meet more often as needed?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Like if we have something more pressing than coming up, we absolutely can. But that's also why, I mean, you have to be cognizant we're all volunteers scheduling, so meeting more often may or may not be the easiest thing to arrange this all for. But if we can be proactive, then we can get ahead of the game, is what my intent was. But yeah, if something comes up, we need to meet more, especially around something like this. We just need to work together on scheduling that.
Okay.
So can we move on to, any other questions around item 3 or 4? We kind of blended those, but, okay, moving on to 5, this maybe where Amber comes in. Update on discussion regarding city council action on the RCDC budget for fiscal year 2021, 2022.
Sure. So if you recall, RCDC met, I think it was the Thursday before the city council was set to pass the budget. We have to pass our budget by September 30th of every year. And we have to have a balanced budget. And by that point, the city had already been counting on the $88,000. That's part of the management services agreement. And so the council had a good conversation. They asked first if RCDC had, pressing projects that were coming up, and kind of what the impetus was for the conversation. And we explained to them that, staff would be happy to put a budget together about how much time we're actually spending. That RCDC is interested in possibly contracting with somebody to do some of these relationship building exercises, to bring development in. And basically council said, we're happy to have that conversation, but not right now because we have to get the budget passed and we're relying on that income to have a balanced budget. So basically, this item was just to update you on that. So they basically said, you know, RCDC, go back, set your budget as what was originally intended. Happy to do a budget amendment. You know, we always budget, the city always budgets conservatively for sales taxes and things like that. So we'll probably be able to cover that 44,000 with, you know, with other things. There are projects that don't get done, you know, things that come up. So they said we're happy to have that conversation, but just not right now. So then the next item, it relates to the 88,000, and that's and I apologize for not getting a draft or a copy of that. It's actually out to the mayor to sign. He was the president when it passed, and he's also the mayor when it passed. So he's got to sign that, and I'm happy to pass it around, at least the unexecuted copy for you to see. But we have to, RCDC has to basically let the city know that we'd like to open this up, renegotiate it, but it's good for a year term. So you're locked into it, which leads into kind of, we've got to set the budget to 88,000 originally, but going off the joint meeting, part of that joint meeting, we could have an item on there to talk about the management services agreement and the budget and have those conversations, and y'all could talk to them about, you know, what you want to do with relationship building with the developers and execution of the comprehensive plan and your role in that, and helping to prioritize any of the things, infrastructure things that the city might want to be doing that would also help drive business in Rollingwood. So that's what these next three items are kind of about.
So, just so I understand in layman's terms, this may not be the most correct language, but they said thanks for no thanks on our budget.
We appreciate your
We
offer.
appreciate
And then
the-
from there, told us that our budget was something else, and didn't expect us to approve the budget that they stated for us. Is that correct?
We've contracted for that. We've signed an agreement.
Yeah.
Yes, in fairness, y'all have signed the agreement,
Yeah.
and
Get on with it.
Okay.
and we also explained we have a new RCDC
Yeah.
board, and you know they had, you know, some other things that they
Yeah.
had been working on, and so maybe weren't quite paying attention to the budget, you
Yeah.
know, and kind of started to realize that at, you know, kind of the last minute, and so just to
Okay.
yeah,
So
but
then-
it was definitely a friendly conversation. If they need something, happy to talk about it. If they, you know,
I said that relatively tongue in cheek, so I wasn't too serious, but that's why I was paraphrasing it. But, so what we need to do then from a budgetary standpoint, both for council and RCDC, is to approve it as previously scoped, the budget, right? And then from our item, sounds like would be when we have the joint meeting with council, just kind of work through both how do we help with the comprehensive plan, what our 2021, 2022 expenditures will be, what we think out of that, basically what you described, maybe in more detail and context. And
Right,
just
so-
go from there. Is that correct?
right on number 6,
Yep.
basically it'd be working with staff to schedule a joint meeting
Yep.
with the city council, which you've already stated in number 4.
Mhm.
And then on number 7, it's the original budget, the
Yep.
original resolution with the 88,000.
Correct.
You would be taking action on that resolution to
Meaning approving.
approve the budget.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay, so, and then that would mean on the record, for future RCDCs, meaning next year's, if there was a discrepancy or a discussion that needed to be happened regarding the agreement, we would need to start that relatively quickly, so the council's not blindsided by a $44,000 reduction, correct?
Correct.
Okay. I don't think we have a choice in the matter, so, I think we need to bring this up on action on approving the 2021.
Can I ask a question, Barry?
Yeah, go ahead.
This agreement, is it something we sign every year
It's
or every other?
renewed every
It is.
year, and I think either party has to give notice.
Mhm.
But the city council ultimately decides as to whether they want to open up the agreement. They could say, no, RCDC, we don't want to. But they were clear at the budget meeting that they were open to having those discussions.
So can we put a line in the current document that states that we would have this sort of checks and balances
No.
on both sides? I mean, can we go
Mhm.
ahead and do that, or no?
No, we already signed it, so this is
Oh, you
why
already
it's like,
signed- okay,
it's
I'm
like,
sorry.
it's
It's
like a
signed, it's
perpetuity.
done.
When did we sign?
So,
Oh, okay.
when we signed initially, it was like, think of it as like an auto renew on your credit card and you forget that it's there.
Oh, okay, sorry.
It's kinda what happened.
Misunderstood.
It's sort of like an
Yes.
evergreen.
I thought with the new year.
Yeah.
Unless you get in there and
Unless
change
you
it.
tell.
So we just,
Okay.
no, I
So-
think what we could have is, again, we could have in this meeting that's coming up, both discuss
Yeah, okay.
strike force items, but also we can bring this up and say where we're thinking as we move forward as a body, and then work with council on that. It sounds like they're amicable to working through it, just maybe not the week before they already had what they felt was an approved budget.
But is there a time frame for when you can, ask to not renew it? Like, could you not, could you say,
Or
hey,
we'd have to
for
amend
the
it,
future, we don't wanna renew it
or
now?
Or make amendments to it.
make
Like, what
amendments
are
to
the-
it. I
what
mean,
is the
I think
timing?
we're gonna need to have a service agreement, we just amend it.
Yeah.
That day is not today.
The city council appoints every one of us. If you don't wanna do it, they'll find somebody else that will.
That will sign it.
That's the
right.
crux of it.
That's correct about that.
So,
So you renew it.
so you-
You're
well,
wrong.
it's
Although
been
I do not,
justified before.
I do not see that happening, but it's a possibility.
You never know.
I never know.
Okay, so then this one we would need to do a vote for. So,
I think Amber's looking for that,
I'm sorry?
she's looking for the timeline window of if we are
And
in the future when we could make.
it can be terminated by the city or RCDC, in part upon 30 days notice from the terminating party to the other party. And then if RCDC would terminate this early, you'd be responsible for the remaining portion. It's in effect for a period of 1 year commencing January 1, 2020, ending, and then it's auto renewal. And then,
So it'll auto renew from now on from October 1 through September 30th. Right?
So then we were within our.
is it, I think it's just the same January 1, right?
I was thinking we had adopted it outside of the normal budget cycle,
I think we did.
so it'll run from October 1 to September 30th.
Okay.
And that would be when those timeframes are applicable.
Okay. So 30 days notice, but again, I feel like this council is willing to have the discussion. I will make sure you all get a copy of this as well.
Aren't you gonna do not a budget, but sort of a review of cost history for the city? About
Yes.
justifying the $88,000?
Yes.
You're gonna give that to us?
Yes,
Okay.
we will put a tighter pencil to it. I mean, we did some, again, when, in 2019, when we were doing the initial budget, we were up against the wall then too, so. We promise to do that.
Okay.
Can that be done by next meeting?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. I mean, so we have it for prep for next meeting.
Yeah, you want an item on the 28th
Yeah.
agenda, possibly?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I think goal is that we have so many projects that we're, that agreement.
Actively
It's
contemplating.
kind of a moot point, but in years where it's, God forbid, another COVID, and we're not able to do things, what's our plan there? Okay,
You got it.
thank you for that.
So,
So now you need a motion.
yep, need a motion to, on number
Motion to
7.
approve the management service agreement with the city of Rollingwood.
Oops, sorry, 7.
Shoot. Take that back. Motion to approve the fiscal year 2021-22 budget for the RCDC.
Seconded.
Alright. So, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Alright, it passes. Okay, and then moving on to item number 8, discussion on possible action to call a special meeting on Thursday, October 28, 2021. This was something that came out of our agenda planning meeting, and kind of dovetail into what was done on the comprehensive plan. We wanted to make sure that everyone had a chance to review and kind of have represented the retail coach. I think we all were not here, but we had, a previous RCDC had paid for a retail coach to come in and do a kind of analysis of what our commercial corridor could look like. And there's a whole lot of other items in there, but they're gonna come and present that, I think tentatively October 28th. So to your point, we are looking to schedule a second meeting in the month for Thursday, October 28th, for RCDC to go over the retail coach items again as we move forward. Is that meeting open to is that another public meeting? Like,
Yes.
just like this?
Yes.
It won't be just a presentation or anything, it's straight up from the
Yes,
presentation?
it will be just like this, and then I'm happy to put a budget discussion, with the items of the cost for the city. We can put that on that agenda as well.
If it's okay, given, I remember that presentation being very detailed, I would like to just move that to our
Okay.
standard meeting and
We
keep
can do
this
that.
focused on the retail coach.
You got it.
Say that again, Mayor?
So, the meeting coming up on October 28th, instead of adding agenda items to it and treating it as like adding the items for the audit essentially of their work, I wanted October 28th just to be regarding around the retail coach so that it's
Yeah.
very specific to the item versus having to go through, because last year when we did the retail coach, I mean, I think it was like a 2 or 3 hour presentation. It may not take that long again, but I remember it being quite lengthy. You were doing that, Pat.
Yeah, it's a long meeting, very informative.
So, and that will be currently scheduled for Thursday at noon. Keep in mind that it'll probably run over an hour. So,
Couple hours.
do we need that to be at normal, like an off work time for everyone to be able to make that, or is that something?
It was the time Aaron
the time you
Farmer
make
with
it? Okay.
Retail Coach was
So,
available.
It is what it is. Can this be optional virtual?
Not yet. We're trying to do a hybrid option. We're running into some problems with our hardware software, so we're working on it. But it is live streamed.
Yeah, so I guess that was my next recommendation. If you can't be here in person officially so we can get quorum, at least try to tune in so you can at least from an auditory standpoint, listen to it and get background. You may not be able to.
Well,
be here
Barry,
in
we'll
person.
need quorum to have the meeting.
I know that. I'm just if 1 or 2 people can't be here.
Yeah.
For conflicts or have to leave.
No fewer than 4.
Correct.
Yeah.
Just
But
if
you
they
can
could,
watch it. You can watch
Yeah.
afterwards, and feel free to submit questions. And
Still need 4.
yeah.
Always need 4.
Could we push that to 12:15 just out of curiosity?
Well, that's when Aaron's going to be here.
That's
so
when
let's-
Aaron's gonna be here, but feel free to show up at 12:15.
If we have 4, we're fine.
Yeah.
1, 2.
I said 11, 12 meeting. If I need to move it, I can.
I can't be here, I know that.
That's what I was just wondering.
I'll be here.
I'll be here. There's 2.
I'll be.
That's 3.
Okay.
I'll be.
So we'll have 4.
Perfect.
Okay.
Perfect.
And then we're here with 5.
Becky can call in.
Yeah, I'll be at high tea at the Driscoll, I'm sorry.
That sounds amazing.
I'm not gonna cancel my high tea.
No.
I need to cancel
That's
that.
kind of like RCDC.
Okay, so that meeting will be set.
Can I ask, I'm sorry,
go ahead.
one more, I'm gonna ask more questions. What's our goal here?
With this meeting? So this is more of a refresh of what happened and what was presented before. So if you looked at the previous documents regarding retail codes, this is kind of a reintroducing it to RCDC. Because quite honestly, when we got it, we've had we haven't done anything with it.
Okay.
So as
Okay.
we move forward, like I said, with the work of the comprehensive plan and kind of as we look forward to a new year, this will be helpful.
Can we see it beforehand?
Yeah,
So we can come with questions
Yeah.
or
I'm pretty
thoughts?
sure it's on the website.
It's on the
It's-
website.
Yeah,
Okay.
there's a bunch of resources on the
There's a lot of
website,
things on the
but it's, you know, the thing that this particular retail coach study did was it took a look at really on almost a property by property basis of all the properties along the retail corridor and talked a lot about, because we have a lot of properties that are being, at least from a development and economic development standpoint, are being underutilized currently. And so a lot of it fits, and it's one of the things that we looked at and talked about a lot as we worked on the comprehensive plan. But then kind of coming back full circle to, the question of what are we going to do with it? Basically, it's to start having discussions about how to encourage, frankly, the kind of businesses that people want to have in Rollingwood and want to frequent Rollingwood here, the kind of businesses that are going to help from an economic development and revenue generation standpoint. But then also, how are some ways in which, we can potentially be part of this discussion to incentivize some of the sorts of redevelopment we might like to see in the future.
So, alignment, that's the point of this.
Perfect.
Alignment. Thank you, Tom.
So, moving on to the next item, that's discussion of RCD financials through 2021. We would be having those up.
Are you ready, Bobby?
No.
I bet Pat's ready.
I didn't bring them.
All right, all right. Let me pull them up.
And the most important thing we do is,
Hey,
we're having to wait on. It's okay.
you
Get
know,
them next time
the money's rolling in.
when you spend it
Yeah. Well, you don't need it.
ethically and, in an efficient way.
Wait, watch that.
Wisely,
Watch
yes.
that.
Definitely wisely. Yeah, we got some items coming up that'll be of good use to the community, so we need to make sure we know where we stand.
Okay, let me get to this. Okay, so as of August 31st, you were 92% of the way through the fiscal year. We had budgeted $100,000 in sales taxes because of COVID, so we were super conservative. Year to date, we have brought in $140,885, which is 141% over budgeted revenues.
And that puts us like 148% above, where we're at, of like projected, so.
That's exactly right.
Amber, I have a quick question.
Yes.
Is there any way, or is it broken out at all? I'd be curious to know kind of the sales tax revenue, how much of it, and I don't know if this is possible or not, how much of it is generated by brick and mortar businesses within the city versus how much of it's point of sale for internet sales?
I mean, it's virtually impossible to tell.
Is
where-
it, because all commingled when it gets to the Secretary of State?
It is.
or
I mean,
not,
you
sorry,
can see
the,
all sorts of
Comptroller's Office?
information, but it's like all sorts of
Yeah,
weird.
I didn't know if that's something that the Comptroller's Office could break out for us ever or not.
Couldn't you just look at when the internet retailers were required to start collecting sales tax and just look what the bump in sales tax revenue was that month?
Yeah, we've had, I mean, it's kind of been phased in, some internet sellers do it, not all comply. But, and compliance is improved, but also I think we've had some retail attrition along the commercial corridor too, so kind of getting two different ways. Tom, I think you have something.
Traditionally, we have, Rolandwood has gone back and checked with the comptroller about the addresses that we had in
Correct.
Rolandwood. And frequently, we've had a lot more money come back in that was reallocated from either the city of Austin or Westland. And you can do it by address. You'd have to submit every address of retail address as well as the residential addresses to try to track the Amazon deals. But you can do it that way and get an aggregate. And you might submit it twice. You may just submit all the residential addresses, which would give you the e-commerce deals, and then submit the, it's a lot of work. Comptroller's Office used to do that for us if we just gave them a list of addresses. I don't know if they still do that. My guess is,
No, I mean, I know they will, you can sign up, I think Sharon might be in Ashley's office. She can't be at her office, so she has to be in Ashley's office.
I thought that was Amazon.
That's what I thought. Is that Alexa talking to us? Oh my goodness.
It was Facebook.
Terrifying. I thought it was Alexa.
Tom, I'm pretty sure it was Facebook.
It wouldn't be for me. They don't know access. But
Oh, Tom, they do.
They do. Not by anything I've done. Anyway, I would, that's, it's time consuming to do that now, I fear.
There's so much, we could ask for the top 10, but has to be strictly confidential, like basically only myself could know. We can give general answers. I mean, that's not worth it. Amazon does do destination sourcing. They've complied a lot longer before. It's obviously important to put Rolling Wood down as your address to make sure that Rolling Wood captures that. I know Gavin is a good advocate in in working closely with the comptroller and kind of
Yeah.
helping to keep an eye on what's going on and making sure we're.
Yeah, I know we've been really proactive as a city about pursuing collection of online and point of sales that way. I just didn't know if there was any sort of breakout or not. I'd just be curious.
There are firms that actually
That do
do
it.
this for us, but they charge like 30%.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't charge.
30% of zero is zero, but 30% of $100 is not, that's $70 more for us.
It is, and it's just a lot. And
Yeah.
it's just, you almost look at it and go, if it gets to be sufficient numbers, it warrants
Yeah.
having, maybe the staff, increasing staff to be able to do that. That's
Yeah.
a number. But, traditionally, I think you get to go back two or 4 years.
I think it's 4 years.
You should be.
4 years.
Yeah.
And we've
Statute on
pulled
sales
in
tax.
some six-figure numbers over the years when it piled up a little bit. And,
So, yeah.
and as we all know, when you put your address in, it immediately says Austin.
Yeah.
And some of the websites, you can change it, but it changes it back to Austin
Yeah.
when you do it now.
It's because it's the way the post office does it.
Or
So I blame the postal service.
But that's, these are potentially sufficient funds for us to look at that. Staff has got, they're, I know they're very busy, and it may be that that's an outside program that would,
Can we add that to our next meeting? Not the 28th.
That's a topic.
so, I guess the good part is most of these firms, if I remember correctly, and you probably looked at this,
I have.
they don't charge you up front, they just charge you a percent of what you're gaining.
If nothing else, it'd be a good, level set for us, right? To figure out what the hell's been going on, and then from there.
And if we haven't done this in 4 years, the risk is, okay, so we leave a year off,
Right.
that may produce,
So what-
enough money to pay for get these guys to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it might be worth it to do it now since to David's point, we've had some attrition in our commercial corridor and now
We've
might
also
be
seen
worth it.
e-commerce explode over the past year and a half. I mean, it already was a lot, right? But with COVID, I mean,
Oh,
everybody.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm gonna bet there's good opportunity there. So we can talk about that and maybe bring some firm names and I did for that.
Yeah,
Okay. That is it for our meeting then. So we need a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Hi.
Aye.